Hello crazy coders, welcome back to yet another video on our series why SQL is so popular. We have already covered history and philosophy, and in this video we'll talk about power, and in the upcoming video we'll discuss about its market. So in this video we'll talk on the terms what you can do with it, tools and technologies available, etc. So without further ado, let's get started. See, SQL is a language, and why it's a powerful language? Because of its features, right? So let's list down some of its features so that we can understand why it's powerful. So first feature that makes this language so powerful is it is a domain specific language, which means it is restricted to only one application domain, but it is specialized in it. It has no competition in its domain, right? So moving ahead, the second feature is it has data definition ability, which means we can use SQL to not only manage data but also create a database. So that's amazing. And third feature is its data manipulation abilities. Of course, SQL it is named a standard query language, but it can be used for data manipulation such as altering table names as discussed in the previous video. To check out fourth ability is it is integration with other languages such as Python, R, and many other SQL servers provide APIs to many languages. And what this feature brings is if you want to execute some very logical stuff, some algorithm on a particular data of table, then it's very hard with SQL because SQL doesn't allow implementing algorithms. It becomes very difficult with SQL. So we can integrate with languages like Python, which which makes it easy to code logically, and then we can apply that function to SQL by retrieving the data from the SQL language. So in that way it makes the database manipulation very broad, like you can do anything you want with the database. So that's why SQL is a powerful language, because it has integration with other languages which are also powerful. Right now we'll go through some of the roles in the industry which use SQL extensively. So like for example, researchers, statistical researchers use SQL for their research. Database administration, of course, any work related to database of course has to work with SQL. Software engineers also work with SQL. Data scientists, data engineers, data analyst, and software tester. So now we will go through how they use the SQL. Let's start with the data analyst. So what data analysts do with SQL is data integration, forming databases, report generation, data cleaning, query writing, and resolving data issues. So data integration basically means joining two or three tables, right, like that. Forming database is very self-explanatory, that you are creating database using SQL, and report generation is basically using statistic analysis to generate a report and make it easy for others to understand what data says. Data cleaning is of course understanding what's wrong with the data and removing the wrong things. Query writing is very simple, you are just retrieving data. Resolving data issues also falls into data cleaning, but it's more than that, or detecting outliers, like that. So if you want to become data analyst, you must surely understand SQL because it is used a lot in the data analyst workflow. Moving ahead with the data scientist. A data scientist is considered as data analyst is considered as a sub work of the data scientist work. So all the work that data scientists do with SQL also falls in data analysts do with SQL also falls into data scientist work. And continuing it, we have data aggregation, which means grouping like data. Yeah, it is very similar to grouping the data. Not only data aggregation means grouping the data, but implementing statistical functions such as mean, median, mode, and to understand how the spread of the data. Ranking functions, there are ranking statements in SQL, you can use them to understand ranking. And joins are also available in the database, and data scientists use those joins to understand what is the relation between 2 and 3 tables, like, and resolving data issues as well. As discussed, it is also part of data analyst, that is also part of data scientist. Moving ahead, we have software engineers. How software engineers use SQL? Let's see. Okay, to design database schemas, to execute queries, data integrity, CRUD, which is create, read, update, delete functionalities, backend for websites and transaction system. Yeah, design DB schemas basically means defining databases, which is tables. Schemas basically means they're defining tables and relationship between them. So queries, data integrity basically means allowing what data should be seen and what data should be in control, like that. Correct? Yes, every functional website has this operation: create, read, update, delete. But not only they input in the website, but they also update in the database. So yeah, backends for website. Database is very important for every website, since there are a lot of data we have to store to understand and serve the customer better. And transaction system, yes, transaction system are based on SQL because they are very structured, and there is only limited amount of information we have to collect during the transaction. Yes, that's why they are also used by software engineers to execute transaction systems. Moving ahead, we have software testers. So what does the software tester do with SQL? Let's write SQL queries to test maybe the software and generate virtual load on the server. This is very common. If you want to test the load of a particular software, you can't bring that many customers to that software, but rather you generate a virtual load on the server and check the software will take that load or not. So that's one of the use of SQL. Because you can actually create tables like customers, and you can use that table to generate virtual load. And for testing, you can upgrade of the SQL software version that is used in the software, of course. And testing DB migration from an older DB to a new DB version. So basically, software testers use SQL in their work extensively again. And another biggest thing of this SQL which makes it powerful is Google BigQuery. Google BigQuery is basically a fully managed serverless data warehouse that enables scalable analysis over petabytes of data. Which, in simple words, Google Query is a cloud-based big data analytics web service for processing very large read-only data sets. Okay, big data, as you know, the data that is constantly flowing and which have 5 V's in it. Like, you can Google it, or I will make a video on it. It basically means large amount of data that is flowing like anything, and you know to actually analyze it, you need a very powerful service such as Google BigQuery, and you cannot do. BigQuery was designed for analyzing data on the order of billions of rows using SQL like syntax. So that's why SQL is become powerful, because BigQuery actually allows analysis using SQL like syntax. And of course, BigQuery is powerful because it allows us to query or do analysis on billions of rows of data. Yes, so it runs on Google Cloud Storage infrastructure, and it can be accessed with REST oriented program interface, which is a REST API, right? So some features, let's talk about them. It is managing data. Of course, managing data is not only for small amount of data but also for billions of rows of data. Integration, yes. Machine learning is one of the biggest advantage using the query, because you can make machine learning models with the help of SQL. That's amazing. And of course, query. Query basically, query seems very simple, but when you talk about big data, which is very large data, then query might become complex in normal SQL. But BigQuery, because of BigQuery, it is very simple. And access control also, basically everything that SQL allows, BigQuery allows on large scale, but also machine learning. So that's it about BigQuery. But all these things makes SQL so powerful. So that was it from this video. Thank you for watching. Have a great day ahead. We will catch you up in the next video.